Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are back once again. We're on like episode 15 or 16 at this point. When you start losing count, that's when I feel like we're finally consistent. Although Pedro's not very happy with me because I showed up. By the time we got this podcast started, we're probably close to an hour. Yeah, we're close to an hour after we should have started. It's not my fault. It's Georgie's fault.
It's not my fault.
Georgie knows. Well, here's the thing. If I don't send Georgie a message that I'm going to be here on time, Georgie ends up showing up when I get here, which is still late because he still show up 10 minutes.
That's right.
He was here the earliest.
I was here the earliest.
This time. This is the first time. This is the first time.
And I warned Pedro, so he can
But
stop by and get some coffee.
Pedro is back once again because we've just allowed him back. The fans seem to like him. I think there's the two listeners that we have on this podcast seem to like Pedro. I think there was actually three. I think there was another one.
Well, that's why I'm wearing the Roma jersey to please one of them, Sonny.
Sonny, if you're listening to this, what a legend. What a legend.
One of the three is it Pedro of his own account commenting his own? Okay.
That is one of the three. All right, so Pedro has officially become, well, not officially, unofficially become the guy with the topics. So Pedro, what are we starting with? We going Premier League or what?
Yeah, I think we should start with the Premier League and this weekend's games, especially that Spurs Arsenal, which was a great game. I think what Ainge is doing with Tottenham is insane, and of course Arsenal is still playing pretty well, coming together. Still not seeing a lot of fantasy points from Kai Havertz though.
I told you guys this. I've been saying this since the beginning.
But yeah, it was a great game. Did you watch it, Georgie?
Yeah, I watched it. My question is, who's more happy with the result out of the two?
Tottenham Hotspurs, of course, because Arsenal. Well, first of all, Arsenal should have won if it wasn't. See this, and I sent. My boy Eddie, who's a huge Chelsea fan, I sent him a message, and I think I sent you a message as well, and I said, from now on, there should be a new rule at Arsenal's: we do not buy former Chelsea players.
You did put something about, was it Jorginho in the
Kai
chat?
Havertz comes in and does absolutely nothing for us.
Yeah.
Jorginho comes in and is the reason why we draw that game. I don't know what that guy's doing. So I was very disappointed with the fact that we tied when I think we should have won. And I think... Can't remember one of the other Spurs goals, but one of them was also a mistake. Oh yeah, it was Raya.
Yeah,
it was Raya failed to the ball gets chipped. It's like one of those cross shots, and then he doesn't really know what to do with it. Doesn't really clear it. They get the ball, and then they scored.
We're gonna get to that topic because I brought it up last week.
Raya?
Yeah, because I brought it up last week, and it's still very interesting because now we watched Arsenal in the Champions League, we watched them in the League Cup, we watched them in the Prem. Like where Ramsdale's out. Like
for now.
Obviously, things can change. Maybe in the 60th minute, Arteta can, make a substitution. But if you're watching that game and you're an Arsenal fan, who would you put the blame on Arteta? In terms of, okay, you said the transfer-wise, he's the one that brought in Kai, Jorginho. He's bringing those players. Would you say, and obviously let him to play, would you put the blame on more on Arteta? Is it 50-50? Obviously, players. Where do you see? I mean, you're an Arsenal fan, so
Raya is a tough one, and I want to get Pedro's perspective because he's got the goalkeeping experience. But rarely do you ever hear of a goalkeeper getting benched when they're playing well. It doesn't really happen. Typically, you have to wait until they make some sort of a mistake in order to bench them. I thought he might be flipping back and forth between the two, and that wasn't the case because he's had Raya start in the last 3 games, Champions League and Premier League. So now Raya does that, which you can say is his mistake, that goal. Not completely, but definitely a majority of it was his mistake. So where does that put Ramsdale? First of all, I do want to say this. Ramsdale looked very positive on the sideline. Like when I think Raya made a really good save and he was clapping, and he looked like he didn't look like he was pissed on the sideline. So I think he's doing a good job there, but where does that put you as a goalkeeper where not only were you doing a good job, but now in one of the first games that the new guy comes in, he kind of makes a mistake? I don't know. Pedro, what do you think?
I agree with you. Usually you will wait until, your starter for the first 2 or 3 years that Mikkel was there makes a mistake. I was also very surprised to see him start against Spurs and not just sharing a competition or playing on the Carabao Cup and the whatever. but taking over on EPL games. I don't know. The fact that Mikkel has been switching at random or seems to be doing that gives also a chance for Aaron to come in on the next game. I would probably do that. I would probably not even have started Raya over Aaron on last game. I like I said, it's a weird spot for Aaron to also deal with, and he seems to be doing it quite well. He's also probably fighting for that number one spot for the Euros next year for England. So we'll see. I will hope to see him back in net too. David Raya is a great goalkeeper. I just think that Aaron was, being a top performer at Arsenal, and I didn't really see a reason why not to keep him.
I wonder if Arteta told Raya that he was going to get a starting spot when he came over, because he's a number one. He's a goalkeeper who you think he wants to be, or he needs to be number one wherever he's going. So if you're going to get him to Arsenal, if you're going to convince him to come to Arsenal, you have to promise, not promise, but you have to kind of, I don't know what the right word would be, but without promising officially, letting him know that he's probably going to start.
Yeah, an expectation. And I think that he did, obviously. I think Raya had an undisputed spot at Brentford, and he was also breaking into the Spanish national team as well. So for him to make a move to Arsenal's bench wouldn't have made a lot of sense. So I think Mikkel definitely talked to him and set some kind of expectation that he was going to start plenty of games there.
But like, if you're a player, obviously I'm not a goalkeeper, but if you're a player and you're in and out of the lineup, you're never going to get confidence. And as a goalkeeper, you need confidence to be playing your best. So where does that put either of them? I mean, let's say, for example, Ramsdale starts the next game. He plays for 1 or 2 games. Then he comes back out. Raya plays. You never gain that consistency as a player. Especially as a goalkeeper, you need to be getting those games in. You need to get those reps in a real game. So that, to me, it makes zero sense. Obviously, Arteta has his reasons. It makes sense in a way that Raya is more of a Arsenal and Arteta style of a player where he's, gets the ball to his feet, he's good with the ball at his feet, where Ramsdale's not. But I think Ramsdale's a lot better at shot stopping and making those key saves, where Raya is still really good at it, but just not to the level of Ramsdale. And also, again, like you mentioned, like Ramsdale was breaking into the national team. So now where's that put him? Like, both those goalkeepers are pushing for those national spots, and now both seem to not, it just doesn't seem like it's going to work out for either of them. If Arteta's actually going to keep flip-flopping between 1-2 games, or 60th minute sub or whatever,
right.
It just doesn't, the consistency will not be there.
And you can come to a point where neither of them are peaking or are at their best, which is the worst case scenario for Arsenal, right? Goalkeeping is obviously a different position. A lot of goalkeepers peak later in life or in their career. And when you think about great goalkeepers of all time, Buffon, Casillas, Neuer, all these guys, they were there and they peaked after years of being undisputed starters for their team. So it's a tough spot.
Fortunately for Ramsdale, if you're thinking about the English national team, you don't necessarily have to be getting lots of minutes for your club in order to get a starting position, because your boy Harry Maguire is playing for the national team.
Yeah.
Calvin Phillips is playing for a national team, and those guys have not been getting as many minutes. So I think right now Ramsdale probably it's not going to be used against him too much. But I just wonder how long it's going to be before he says, I'm not going to be here and be number 2 when I was number 1, and when most Premier League clubs now will take him as number 1.
Especially after last year, where he was part of an Arsenal team that pushed Manchester City up, until the end. So it's like, I get it, right? Like, you bring in players, you bring transfers that improve your team. But does Raya really improve Arsenal to that level, to where you take, I would say, a key player of last year's Arsenal, with the saves and, the amount of good saves that he's made. You take him out, and now you put this uncertainty in the situation where nobody knows what's going on. Yeah. And as a goalkeeper, not only in your position, but your defenders have to be confident, right? It's not just like like every keeper has. I mean, maybe on corners they come out, maybe on free kicks, set pieces they do, certain things different. And now you have like 2 games here, 2 games here. I don't know. As a defender, you're just at this point, you're like, all right, what? I don't know what to expect. Like, I'm not, the consistency won't be there defensively as well. So, I mean, I don't know. It's a tough situation. Arteta seems to know what he's doing. I mean, can you fault him after last year?
He did, to be fair. I did see when they were building out of the back, Raya's literally a center back. Like, he's not even inside of his box. They have one of the center backs out, like, at the top of the box out wide, slightly to the left or the right side, and Raya's literally on the other side as if he was another center back. So it's not like he's even inside the box. So I think that's why maybe Mikel brought him, because he feels he's probably going to be the exact same in terms of the saves and the shot stopping, but he's going to be better with their feet. And I wonder if the fact that Arsenal bottled it towards the end of last season was one of the reasons why Mikel felt like he had to bring him in. Like, do you think if Arsenal would have won the Premier League last year and they would have done just enough to stay ahead of Manchester City and not dropped all those points towards the end, do you think he would have brought in another goalkeeper, or do you think he would have been fine with Ramsdale?
I mean,
like, I wonder if he just doesn't want that to happen again, and he feels like Ramsdale maybe is part of that.
but what, like, thinking about back to last year, how many of those games or lost points can you blame on Ramsdale? Like, I don't know. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. I wonder if he blames some of those points on Ramsdale, which is why he brought.
yeah, I mean, that's the
Raya.
only. I don't. I mean, I can't remember. Like, I'm sure there's every goalkeeper makes a mistake. Everybody makes a mistake, but I can't remember being like, oh my god, Ramsdale's like off it. Like, he's made like
Not serious mistakes.
yeah. Like, I can't remember any. Maybe like a few times where he's trying to kick the ball and like like a pass through and like he gets intercepted maybe, but doesn't have Ederson, Allison. They all do the same exact stuff. So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I'm with Georgie here. I think the difference is not as big, or it was not such a differential transfer for it to be an immediate need of Arsenal to be addressed in this market, and for it to be the reason why you will bring that uncertainty to your defensive line, to your set pieces, whatnot. I think you're not talking about a top 5 goalkeeper in the world on David Raya. So, yeah, I wonder if it was even necessary. We'll see. I mean, maybe he does great and he becomes, elite goalkeeper this season.
Yeah, well, I mean, just going back to that game, I was disappointed because you're at home, you're playing at the Emirates, so it's a game where you're expecting to get 3 points. It's not like if we were going to the Etihad and playing Manchester City away or even Tottenham away. I feel like it was there for us to win, and individual mistakes is what cost us. And obviously Arteta's going to be pretty frustrated at that part, that it wasn't that Tottenham was actually better. It was just individual mistakes.
yeah, I mean, I think both are really good teams. Like in the Premier League so far.
Well,
at
Tottenham's
least.
different this year as
Yeah,
well.
Spurs are completely different under the new coaching staff overall. He's brought in a lot of experience in the coaching staff alone, and then also the confidence he's giving. Like, I mean, we've said here last year talking about Richarlison and how he didn't score a goal for X amount of games, and you saw Richarlison cry when he's coming back from Brazil, saying, "I need like help and confidence," and he's lacking all that. Comes back, plays for the last like 10 minutes in the previous game, scores a goal. And then confidence is back up. So I think he's bringing a lot of confidence into the team overall. After, I mean, I'm included in the percent of people that I'm talking about, because I didn't expect Spurs to be starting out the way they are, especially losing 30 goals a year, Harry Kane. I just didn't see how Spurs are going to be able to be playing as good as they're playing, or keeping up with everybody so far. Again, it's early on in the season, but what Agnes done so far is, I mean, it's really impressive.
And a lot of people have said that losing Harry Kane is probably better for Tottenham than actually keeping him. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Because on one hand, you're trying to find a way to replace 30 goals or whatever, right? On the other hand, you are no longer focusing your entire game plan on one player.
Thoughts, Pedro? What do you think about that one?
It's tough because Harry Kane is that world class player, and you don't come across many of them when you're the Spurs. So to say that they are better off without him it's a huge statement. I'm not sure if it's true.
Maybe not necessarily better off without him, but like in terms of their growth and the potential that they have in like their future, it makes more sense to finally let him go.
I think they're more of a team.
Right.
Yeah.
More of a team.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you look at like Harry Kane, who's been there, and the whole system and the coaching staff and every coach that comes through, they base everything around him, and they have to kind of, I don't want to say please him, but they do, because it's Harry Kane and he is Spurs. So when they come in, you might have a way of playing. Your style has to alter to benefit him, to get him involved. And when somebody like that is gone, now you're pretty much telling your team, like, all of you guys have to step up, be a team, be a unit, be together. And if you listen to my style or the philosophy I have, is going to work. And so far, like, it's been working great. And also, I didn't expect Son to be captain. I mean, I've watched. He's been one of my favorite players in the Premier League. I would have never expected Son to be a captain for any Premier League team, let alone. I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's just he's not that type of a. He's never been like outspoken. He never talks a lot. He's more of a quiet guy. And I remember, what was it, 2 years ago when Hugo Lloris and him had like right before halftime they got into a big argument, and like all those things came out about Son and the arguments and the tension. So for him to come out to be a captain and to be leading the Spurs team too, as well as they're doing, it's because he's one of my favorite players in the Premier League.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to see that even the quiet guys who you don't think can be captains, if given enough confidence and promise around them, then he can lead us a really good team like that. So,
Do they get Champions League? Tottenham? It's tough to say because it's early and a lot of teams have started pretty well. So it's pretty close at the top. I mean, Manchester City hasn't dropped any points. Arsenal hasn't lost yet. Tottenham hasn't lost yet, right?
Yeah.
Who else? There's like one or two other teams that haven't lost yet. So they're very, like the 1 through 6 is pretty close. So it's a little early to say, but do you think Tottenham's going to be top 4?
I don't think so. The only reason I say no is because they're 1 or 2 injuries away from having to play, I don't want to say mediocre players, but for that standard, like Son gets injured, or I don't know, I'm going to say Bissouma in the midfield, or one of those like key players, then you're looking at possibly dropping points like at away games,
Right.
and the experience won't be there. Obviously, if they can hold on to January and then bring in an extra player or two, then it's a different story. But I think the other teams, the Man Cities, the Liverpools, the Arsenals, those are solidified as like the 3, and everybody else is kind of fighting for the 4th.
Right.
Where Brighton are playing amazing, even though they've been shaky in the Champions League, in the Europa League and all that, how they played. But I don't know. I just don't. I don't know. It's tough to say.
A little early?
A little too early for me.
I think they will be competing for the 4th or the 5th spot. I can definitely see that. I see their lack of depth that Georgie was pointing to. I just really, really believe on what the coach is doing, though. When you see a lot of the stuff that he shares about the team and a lot of man management skills that I see there, I think those are crucial for long-term success. And I really, really like what I'm seeing, and I think it's pretty clear that the players have fully bought into it. So I think it could be achievable for them to fight for that 4th spot or maybe the 5th.
Again, I wonder if the players, it's easier for them to buy into it when Harry Kane left, and it's more of a focus on the all-around team. So I don't know. I wonder. Now, Tottenham doing well, so any Spurs fan right now is enjoying the start of this Premier League, and I think that they're excited about the future of the club, at least for the next year or so. And
If you were pointed out to any Spurs fan before the season and said you'll be where you are right now, with the feeling around the club overall, they would not believe any of this.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree with that.
To be a Spurs fan right now, after losing your probably favorite player and best player, I don't want to say ever, but up there to play for Spurs. Like it's a pretty good achievement so far.
All right, so let's move on from Spurs. Arsenal doing pretty well, I would say. Obviously, not as good as they were last year, because last year I think they were unbeaten in their first 6 games or more, but they're still doing really well. And if you think about this 2 years ago, this is a massive improvement because now Arsenal is expected to win a lot more games than they would have in the past. And they're still unbeaten, which is good, and they've played against a couple of tough teams. Pedro, why don't you lead us into Chelsea, the absolute nightmare that is Chelsea?
Sure. So Chelsea, they're having the worst start of their to a Premier League season since I believe '84 or the early '80s, and that year they got relegated, or it may have been the '70s, '74 or something like that. So I mean, needless to say, with the amount of money they have spent, there are no excuses, right? And you know, for this conversation, we're probably going to leave that aside because we all know the amount of money they have spent and how they are not really producing anything with that, and you know how financial fair play regulations really don't seem to apply to them,
Yeah.
which may bite them down the road. But for now, they're living the dream. But I just wanted to talk about the very weird story that stats tell you about Chelsea versus their actual league position, and you know the results that they have been getting. So Chelsea have 6 goals against, which is the 3rd best in the EPL right now, behind Man City and Liverpool. And they have only had 7 expected goals against. So it means that they're defensively performing at the level that they should, or that they were expected to. They have only scored 5 goals, and only Luton Town and Burnley have scored less goals than Chelsea. They are the only team with Manchester City to have won every single expected goal duel on their 6 games. So every single game they have earned more expected goals than the team that they have beaten us or tied them or they have won against. So it is quite insane, right? They have a total of 11.8 total expected goals, which is completely unusual to see such a huge difference between the 11 that they're almost 12 that they were expected to score and the 5 that they have actually scored. And I think the key thing here is that they're not producing. They're getting there. They're earning the chances that may get them a goal, but they're not producing those goals. And I think the key factor there is Nkunku and Nkunku's injury, which is long term. And the fact that despite all that money, they really haven't bought enough proven finishers. Raheem Sterling, we all know him by now. He's a guy that's going to get you there to that final third and going to create chances, but he's not a guy that will consistently score,
that was one
20,
of his biggest
30
criticisms
goals.
at Manchester City.
Right. So who do they sign as the big striker this year other than Nkunku, who will be gone for a lot of the season? Nicholas Jackson, who is a young guy from Villarreal in Spain.
And don't forget, I mean, they didn't sign him in this transfer window, but Mudryk.
Yeah, atrocious. but Nico Jackson, anyway, 4.1 expected goals so far in 6 games. Has only scored 1. Right?
Why do you think I dropped him in my fantasy team?
Did you drop him?
I didn't drop him. I put him on my bench.
I have Nkunku, but he's in.
Pedro tried to get him.
Did he?
Pedro wants to transfer for Jackson. He's coming around, Pedro. I know what you're thinking. This guy did his research, and he's like, "Oh, Jackson's getting the chances."
Yeah, Pedro did his research.
Yeah.
See, that is also the difference between Pedro, Georgie, and myself. Is that I'll make stuff up and I'll check it later. Pedro actually took his time to do some research, which is good because then it doesn't make us look so dumb. So continue, Pedro, please.
So, that difference, between the expected goals, which should have seen Nicholas Jackson as the second highest scorer right now, versus a guy that has scored 1 goal. And the fact that no Chelsea forward right now, other than Nkunku, who is long-term injured, has scored more than 10 goals in the last 2 seasons. None of them. Mudryk, Jackson, whoever you want, Mudieke, any of the forwards right now in the roster. None of them have scored more than 10 goals in the last 2 seasons of pro soccer. You gotta be pessimistic. Even though you have great stats, they are the biggest percentage on ball possession in the EPL right now. The second team with most touches in rivals half. the third most passes per possession or per sequence in the Premier League.
So what you're saying is that they're missing one piece, and you're saying that when Nkunku comes back, that could be the missing piece.
Could be, but
But it's gonna be way too late.
Well, he's not out for that long, right? He comes back in October, doesn't he?
I don't think so.
Is it
no.
longer than that?
Yeah.
Wasn't it 16 weeks that he was out?
Oh,
and that
maybe.
was like
I got him on my fantasy team, but I thought it was October. I thought it said October.
it could be. I mean, it could
I
very
could
well
be
be.
wrong. Again, I don't check these things,
I don't-
Georgie. I don't do my research.
I don't know exactly when he got injured and when he had
Yeah.
the surgery. And
I
all
think
that.
it was in the US
that's,
tour.
That's very
Yes, sir.
interesting because when people talk about Chelsea right now, they're saying it's like
They're just
complete
shite.
shambles. Yeah. So the stats that you're giving us, especially defensively, is impressive because if they are, you said third in terms of the goals conceded,
Yeah.
that is impressive. So how do you manage to be? I think they're 14th maybe in the table right now. I'll double check that right now, but they're very low in the table. They're close, very close to the relegation zone.
The only reason why I know that's true is because I saw somebody on Twitter post a long ass iPhone and they said Apple's releasing a new iPhone for Chelsea fans so they can see where Chelsea are at.
Well,
on
it just
screen.
if you look at the stats, they are performing at the level that top teams are doing. Arsenal, Man City, expected goals, percentage of possession, percentage of passes in the rivals' half, etc. But it's just so highly unusual to see a top team or a team that it's supposed to fight for the top underperform so much on goal scoring. It is ridiculous.
So they are 14th in the table, which is crazy how far they are from the bottom, considering they've lost 3 games and their goal differential is only -1. So Pedro's statistics are pretty impressive because if it is that simple, I wonder if it is that they just need a forward, right? So Nkunku comes back, maybe a little too late, but maybe in the right time, comes back. I wonder if it does make that much of a difference. Because so the expected goals also takes into account the amount of chances that they create and things like that.
The amount of chances and the quality
So
of that.
so it's not necessarily that they're not creating anything right now and they're just having a nightmare trying to create anything. It's that they're creating them, they're just not, for whatever reason, it's not translating to the back of the net.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some plays against Villa this weekend. I mean, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. There were a couple that Sterling had where it was just an easy tap in if you just pass it to the side 2 yards, that he just took the shot and just, bombed it. And it's just bizarre to me to see that many chances that are high quality chances that most teams will put it away, to see them just throw them. And, I believe Pochettino is a great coach, and I think there is potential there. And they're signing so many young players that are highly rated, and a lot of teams in Europe were after. But yeah, I just think that if they can get to a place where they are finishing and scoring from all of those chances that they're creating, they can make that pushback to the top. I wouldn't, just write their name off like a lot of people are doing right now.
No, but again, it depends on when they're going to sort their stuff out. Because like Georgie said, if it's halfway through the season, then there's going to be very little chance. If they're this low, there's going to be very little chance that they make it to the top 4 or top 5, and they're out of Europe again. And I don't know how long do you go before you sack the manager.
That's what I was gonna ask. Like, you spend so much money, which now over is him, but I like Pochettino. I think he's a really good coach.
Well, I like Tuchel as well,
And he's gone.
right?
So I mean,
I was having I was having a chat with my friend again, and he was telling me, he's like, well, it's a rebuild period. I'm like, you don't get a rebuild period when you spent that much money. Like, can it be a rebuild period? Sure, of course it can. But in terms of like the press and what they're going to say and all of the media and everything, they're going to say you don't get both of those. You don't get to say we're going to spend $200+ million on players and we want some time to rebuild. You're going to say if you brought those players in, it's not because you're thinking about the future. You do that with academy players where you bring in academy. Like Liverpool's done it with a couple of the young guys where Liverpool can say it's a rebuild period because we haven't really bought too many people. We got rid of a lot of players. So now we're bringing some of these guys up from the academy. So we need that. But you can't bring in guys who are supposed to be the most expensive players in the world and then say we need time to build. Like, you can't, I don't know. You don't get both of those, in my opinion.
the crazy thing is, I looked at the next, I don't know if it was 6 or 7 games. They have Manchester City, Spurs. They have Brighton next. Those are all high quality teams. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the Manchester City. I don't know if they play Arsenal in that span, but that's the next 5 to 6 games is going to tell us a lot about, because I don't know, 5 games you're looking at, let's say, if you get 3 to 6 points in the next 5 to 8 games, Chelsea are not going to get anywhere near the top 4.
Well, how bad do you think it is? Do you think it's as bad as like relegation battle bad, or do you think it's like just outside of the top 10, anywhere between like 10 and 15
No
bad?
man's land.
Yeah.
It's
Do you think at some point we're gonna have to be talking about Chelsea getting relegated this season?
if we're talking about Chelsea and relegated, Pochettino is sacked. It is as soon as Chelsea and relegation comes into the mind of people, Pochettino is going to be gone.
Yeah, but again, that goes back to it's clear that well, I mean, it's to me it's pretty clear that it's not the manager right now. It's not the manager's issue. You had Graham Potter, you had Tuchel, and now you got Pochettino, which all three of those Potter didn't have enough time, I think, at Brighton or like a different job to show that he was a really good coach, and now he's kind of in the middle of nowhere. But Tuchel and Pochettino are both very proven coaches with a lot of experience. So if you go through all three of those coaches during this time span, you got to start thinking what is really the issue, because it's not the manager. They'll bring somebody else in, and that's what Chelsea does. But what do you do at that point? Because you can't just keep sacking managers and nothing's changing at all. Typically, here's what happens with Chelsea, right? It's typically they go through a little bit of a bad phase, they sack the manager, they get a new one, they go through a good phase. And then after they go back up to where they should be, they go through a bad phase, a very short bad phase, and then they sack the manager again. The problem with this now is that Chelsea has gone from 3 straight managers with no good phases in between.
It's tough, and that's what the new ownership was supposed to be, right? More stable. Oh, we're understanding. Graham Potter's our guy. He's coming in. We're going to give him the time. We want him, this, and this. And now you're in your third manager in, 2 years?
Do you bring Frank back once again? That Frank was in between
Yeah, Frank was in between.
of those.
No chance. If you bring Frank back,
That would be the third
you
time.
are going.
Talking about relegation.
You are going. You're going into the relegation battle. That's how bad it's gonna get if you bring Frank back.
That's crazy, because it was, who was it? Because Frank came back in between those 3 at some point. Who was it? Was it after Graham Potter, before Tuchel maybe, or after Tuchel, before Pochettino? But Frank came back. But Frank was the manager. Was it before Graham Potter?
No,
Frank's been there twice.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
been there twice.
So you're talking about 4 different managers, like 5 different appointments, and they've been terrible since.
Frank is the same Allardyce for Chelsea.
I feel
Comes
bad
in
for
to
him.
try to save the day, but he makes it a lot worse, and there's just no coming back. And it sucks because he's a Chelsea legend. So now it's like
Tarnishing his reputation a
Yeah,
little bit that he's a terrible manager
it's
when
like-
it comes to Chelsea.
that's terrible. I feel bad for him, but I don't. It's tough because I watched them against Liverpool, and they dominated Liverpool in the second half. It was like the first game of the season, so you can say teams are like just first game. We can't really judge anything. But ever since watching Chelsea, it's like the jersey weighs a lot more now to those players, and it's like you just expect them to mess up. Like going to a game against like Aston Villa. Villa are playing some really good football. So when you right before the game started, you can honestly say Villa's probably going to win this game. And I know Chelsea got the red card, so that played a big difference and everything. But if you're a Chelsea fan and you're talking about Aston Villa, Chelsea were here, Villa were here, and now they're kind of about the same level. That just tells you I don't want to say that Chelsea are done for, because they have the money, they're going to keep changing, they're going to bring managers, and all those stats back it up that one player could just make it click. But just to be compared to those mid teams,
Right.
and not even talked about being compared to the good teams where the money should potentially tell you where they should be, it's just crazy. We talked about all these managers that come through Chelsea. There's no way Pochettino needed time at Spurs to make them who they were. Spurs gave him time. He got them to a really good spot, and now we're talking about Spurs. It's top 6, top 5, top 4 potentially. With Chelsea, at this point, you're talking about change every year, and you're still not getting the results. So,
Yeah, it is kind of quickly becoming a PSG type of situation where, they are just buying a bunch of players every window, spending a lot of money, perhaps even overpaying for most of those players. And then you're
10-year
not really
contracts.
creating a team. You're just creating a roster.
Well, the difference between them and PSG is PSG, the competition level is so far below PSG that even if they're not playing well, they're still going to probably be the champions in France. Whereas here you're playing in the Premier League where not only do you have to get the best players, but you also have to be able to play really, really well if you want to have a chance. Because it's kind of crazy to be able to compete in a league where Manchester City rarely loses a game. I mean, six wins out of their first 6 Premier League games, and all very convincing. Not a single one. I mean, maybe one or two, but not a single one really has been in doubt. So how do you compete with that? How do you compete with the fact that Liverpool started really well, Tottenham started really well, Arsenal started? You don't get that in the French league.
So right now they're in 14th place.
Yep.
How many points is it between? Like it's
So they have 5 points. They have 5 points, and Arsenal, who's in 5th place, have 14 points.
So you're talking about that big of a gap already.
You're talking about a 9 point gap in the first 6 games. Not even to the number 1, to the Europa League, to number 5.
That's insane. But
Chelsea is gonna just be Chelsea.
I mean,
You can't.
again,
gotta rebuild.
The next 5 games is going to tell me a lot, because if they don't pick up 5 games, so you're looking at 15 points.
5 points at least. Would you say 5 points is?
If you don't pick up 6 to 8 points in the next 5 games, you're ending in mid-table-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's because you got to think in those 5 games, Man City are likely going to win
4.
4
Yep.
minimum.
Yep. 12 points
So,
probably.
So you're gonna be looking at potentially a 20-point gap between Chelsea and Manchester City, who obviously you're looking at the top.
I think that they just have to rebuild. They have to do what Liverpool did. They have to swallow it and just say, we are in a really bad period. We either need to, if you're going to sack Pochettino for it, you need to bring in somebody who you're going to give 2 or 3 years and just literally pray that you don't get into the relegation battle and you don't get relegated. Forget about Europa League, forget about Champions League, and just say we're going to give you 2 or 3 years to actually rebuild.
Which is an absurd thing to say when they're spending that kind of money, but it may be the only path to success here.
Can you imagine being Todd Bowley, right? And coming in and spending that much money, and then at the end of it saying, we pretty much just wasted all of this money, and now we have to rebuild. That's the problem. How are you going to
And we will get a 5-year ban in 2 years.
Exactly.
But it's tough though, because you're Graham Potter, right? You bring in players you want to bring, then you get sacked. Frank Lampard, you don't really count that because I don't think he had too much influence over transfers. But you bring in Tuchel next, his own transfers. Oh, it didn't work out. You sack him. You bring Pochettino, now his own transfers, and then the players from Graham Potter are probably like, oh well, we're probably not wanting anymore. So now it's like you rebuild after rebuild after rebuild within a 2.5 years cycle that you're not really rebuilding, you're just buying.
I wonder how many of these players were actually brought in by the managers versus I feel like the connection there is not as good as, for example, Arsenal's Arteta with the sporting director duo. Their relationship is very, very good. Klopp and Liverpool, I feel like, is pretty good. They're limited on money, but I think Klopp knows that the players that they bring in are players that he really wants to be brought in. I think Chelsea is more of like, I don't know if any of these managers are really comfortable with all of the players. Maybe some of them, but not all of the players. And I feel like that relationship between their sporting director and their scouting department and their coach is very good.
Well, yeah, there is no scouting there. They're like, oh, Man City wants this player. Okay, we'll give you 20 extra.
Chelsea swoops in last minute.
It's just like
it.
It's just like going to Football Manager and creating a filter for any under 23 player that is highly rated. Sign them all.
To a 10-year contract.
They are very promising, but right now they are not players that are ready to challenge Man City or Arsenal, and that's a reality. There may be soon, within a season even, depending on how well they developed. But yeah, you gotta be patient. You gotta stick with a plan and a manager. Otherwise, you're gonna soon lose all of those young players because they will get lost on that endless transition between managers.
All right, well, Chelsea is hopefully. I mean, for my Chelsea friends, I hope they turn around. For me personally, I don't really care. I wouldn't mind seeing Chelsea get relegated. Can you imagine Chelsea getting relegated after spending that much amount of money?
I would absolutely enjoy it.
I think it would be great. I think it would teach them a lesson. To be honest, that you can't. While it is about spending a lot of money, you can't just go in there and just literally, like Pedro said, you can't just put in a filter for who's worth more than $70 million, and those are all the players you're going to
But
take.
if clubs haven't learned that lesson already from PSG, they may deserve to be relegated.
Yeah, but again, I told you PSG doesn't look as bad, does it? Because they're still going to win the league. Yeah. So I mean, for them,
that's a given.
PSG, yeah, but PSG's chasing the Champions League, right? So that's their standard. But I mean, when you're at least winning the league, like if PSG was spending all that money and in the relegation zone or 12th or 13th, it would be a much bigger problem. But
what Chelsea became, Chelsea were good prior, but when they started to become what they are now was when Mourinho came in. They spent all that money. They were pretty much the first Premier League team to start that big spending spree in the Premier League, to be bringing all these players, to be winning. And then since then, it's been like 2 years off. 1 year they win the league somehow, Champions League
they won the
somehow.
Champions League with, was it Tuchel that won? They won the Champions League with.
Mm-hmm.
So those things in between make it a lot better, because even if you don't win the Premier League, I think most people will tell you that they would rather win the Champions League than win the Premier League.
Yeah.
So, and I think Chelsea typically wins the league every 3 or 4 years, right? 4, maybe 5 years now recently, but they usually get a Premier League. When's the last Premier League that they won? Has it been a while now?
It has to be a while.
Yeah, maybe it's been a
'Cause
while.
there's been-
But still, they won the Champions League not too long ago, so
It's
they're
been
still happy about
City for the most part,
that. Yeah.
and then Liverpool once in there, and then that's probably
Has
City.
Leicester City won the Prem more recently than Chelsea?
That's
Again, let's find out.
Wow.
I'm about to research it, but while I research this, Georgie,
It might have been Leicester won it, then Chelsea won it the following year.
yeah, I think Chelsea won it after. I believe Chelsea won it.
Potentially.
Yeah, because wasn't
Didn't
the former Spurs coach, the one that just how do I forget these people's names all of a sudden?
former Spurs
The Italian
Conte.
Conte. He won it with Chelsea when he started playing with
Yeah.
with the
I think so, yeah.
3-5-2
Yeah.
or 3-4-3 or whatever.
That's crazy. Then he went to Spurs, and
So let's see
gone.
here.
That's a madman right there, Antonio Conte.
So the last time Chelsea won the 2016, 2017, so it was actually the year after Leicester. But before Leicester, they won it in 2014 and 2015. So it was Chelsea, Leicester, Chelsea, City, Liverpool, City. Damn. I didn't realize it was that much. So in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in the last 6 years, Manchester City has won it 5 times.
But remember, Pep Guardiola is not a good coach.
nobody ever said he's not a good coach.
Pedro's trying to twist
Yeah,
your words a
He's
little.
so overrated.
I never say he's overrated.
But the one team
I
that
said
has
it.
managed to break up the Chelsea or the Manchester City dynasty is Liverpool. And Georgie, the reason why we are consistently uploading these podcasts is because Liverpool is doing well, and when Liverpool is doing well, Georgie will actually like to show his face in front of the cameras.
Listen, I'm always available to do a podcast. Whether Liverpool are doing, whether the best in the world or not.
Listen, I'm pretty sure there was at least one episode last year where I asked you to do it, and you're like, no, I don't want to do it because of Liverpool doing bad.
I don't know. About
Like, no,
that.
not today or whatever. I'm pretty sure there was at least one. But
I
anyway,
don't
how do you
know
feel? How does it feel?
It's still early on, but it's a good start. I'm really happy with obviously the whole rebuild. Klopp is talking about potentially staying. Says he's in love with like the new Liverpool 2.0 and wants to see it through for the next foreseeable future and sign a new contract. I mean,
You got to give him more. You got to give him a lot of credit because he had a rebuilding process which proved to be the right move for Liverpool, and they trusted Klopp. He had a bad year, which, to be fair, is not terrible every once in a while. The good thing was that, well, so far at least, is that it didn't extend past 1 year. Because if it would have been 2 years, then you're really thinking about sacking Klopp. It was one bad year, and now they're started really, really well again. So now you're going to probably give him a little bit more time to continue this second rebuild.
yeah, and again, it's a step in the right direction. I don't know if it's enough to challenge Manchester City per se right now, just because, again, the usual story, we don't have the squad depth. So,
Do you think it should be enough to challenge Arsenal, though?
I think it's going to be top 3 should be, whether it should be close within the top 3. One, I don't think Man City are, again, what they were in the years past. One, well, we'll get to Man City later if we do, but I just don't. I think there are more teams now that can compete on individual game performances against Manchester City in terms of the big teams compared to prior years. Because over the summer or in the past year and a half, you see a lot more Premier League teams spending that money. Where in previous years, you saw the big top teams spend the money. Now you're looking at every single team spending. Like we talk about West Ham. I know City beat West Ham and Liverpool just beat West Ham, but they're still a really good team that on a given day, they can cause you a lot of trouble. And especially now, Rodri's suspended. He got a red card. So you're looking in the midfield where Rodri's been the main player for Manchester City so far this season. Even last year, he was really, really good. But now this season, with KDB out, he's really stepped up and become the talisman pretty much of the midfield of the whole entire team, driving them forward, dictating the whole tempo of the game. Just pretty much the best player in Manchester City, I would say, so far this season. So to have somebody like him miss out is going to be a big miss going forward. But I don't know. Liverpool's squad depth, we just don't have it. We're knock on wood, Szoboszlai doesn't get injured, and then the midfield is still lacking that box-to-box guy or the guy can just control the game. And so far, it's been good, but...
So would Europa League be a bad season if you get 5th place? Would that be a bad season, or would that still be better than...
No. I'm glad you said that.
No, it would be bad.
You don't think that's a decent season for Liverpool in the second year of the rebuild?
I feel the same way as Georgie.
No. I want a challenge. Obviously,
so top four, you'd be okay.
Yeah.
With. Three would be ideal. Like if they finish below Manchester City and one other team, you'd say that's a very good look for the future in terms of Liverpool for the next year, right?
Then we can add on and build on to that.
4th? What about 4th?
4th,
still okay.
It's still
because it's Champions League.
You miss out on Champions League 2 years in a row, then you're looking in trouble. Like Manchester United, they missed out on Champions League a few years in a row, and then starts to become a little bit like, are you that team anymore? But I still, like, deep down inside, I believe we can challenge Manchester City. Looking if Liverpool stay healthy, that's always
I don't think it's realistic for this year. I don't think it's realistic to challenge City. I think you're hoping that you can challenge Manchester City, but I think this year it's unrealistic to say that you're going to really put them in a spot where they'll. No, I don't think so. I think Manchester City's going to be clearly number. Even if no injuries, because you're expecting a lot. And Liverpool, to be fair, the one department that sucks for Liverpool is the medical department. Not saying the medical team, but for whatever reason, people get injured a lot at Liverpool, or the players that you bring in are just injury prone. So, I mean, really, have you had a season recently where injuries didn't play a big part in it?
No, the past 2 years have been just injury galore.
Manchester City that's not really an issue for them. They'll have a couple of injuries here and there, but they're always going to have the squad depth where they're not going to lose a season or whatever, a championship, because of injuries. Whereas Liverpool, that's a huge problem. So I think everything has to go perfectly for Liverpool to even be top 3, in my opinion. I think Liverpool.
So Darwin scoring 20 goals and complete
Darwin's
dominating.
not going to score.
He has 4 goals already.
Listen, we've clearly established that Darwin is not going to be the guy that's going to win Liverpool a Premier League. And you can tell me
I never said that, and I don't even agree with that.
I have established that Darwin Núñez is not going. If Liverpool wins the Premier League, it's because Salah's playing well. It's because Szoboszlai is going to be really good. It's because you're going to have Thiago going to come back at any point ever.
I hope so.
It's because all those guys put together are going to do a really good job, and Núñez is going to do his little piece of the pie in order to get him there.
God,
Núñez is not going to be. Look, we're not even going to.
Unjustifiable hate there.
Wait. You're telling me.
Let's be honest, Georgie.
The start of the season that he said, you're telling me he's not one of the best players in the Premier League?
I'm telling you.
Wait, no, answer that. Has he been one of the best players in?
How many goals he scored?
4.
4 in the first 6? Well, let's look at the player stats right now.
I'm talking about his season so far.
All right. So Darwin Nunez right now is 8th. He's got 3 in the Premier League.
Okay.
Okay. Is that pretty good? Sure. Is it
He didn't
going to win you the Premier League good?
He didn't play.
Does he
all
have the
games.
potential to score 20, 25 a season? I think he does.
I don't.
Dar-
I will
wait.
bet my mortgage. Georgie, this house could be yours. This house could be yours at the end of the season. I will bet you that Darwin Nunez does not get more than 21 goals at the end of the season.
During his career.
No. This
Oh,
this
we're
season.
only
this
talking
season.
about
Okay.
this
Oh,
season.
this season.
This
Okay.
season.
This season, it may be a stretch. but
Wait. Are you talking about Premier League or overall?
Premier League.
That's hard because he's not going to play every single game. Liverpool have
Well,
way
that's
too
what I'm
much
saying,
depth.
though. If you want Darwin Nunez to be the guy that wins you the Premier League, he's got to score more than 21 goals. We can say that. Yes,
know-
because even what was it? Salah. What did Salah get last year?
Or 21, I don't know.
All right, so it was around that range, maybe a little bit higher, I think, right? So I'm just telling you, I think he could be your best player. What I'm saying is that he's not going to score enough goals to be the difference in what wins you the Premier League.
The problem is you're judging. Okay, the way I judge strikers and the way you judge strikers is completely different.
No.
You're judging Darwin Nunes. Did you watch the West Ham game? No, you
Nope.
watched. No. Ask Thomas. I haven't talked to him about it.
We'll bring his Thomas. We'll get another microphone for Thomas. So let him. Come
I
here and
guarantee he'll
just talk.
tell you
Give us 2 cents.
Darwin Nunes completely destroyed West Ham that game. And I'm not talking about goals. I'm
Yeah,
not talking about
individual
anything.
performances are great. I'm just saying, can he do that to every team?
So far,
and be
every
that-
game.
I think he has the
be that
potential
guy?
to do that. I'm not sure about this season,
So
but
so far, every game this season that he started or played, he's completely taken over.
But I'm also you got to compare. You got to do this. So Liverpool, first of all, has to play just as good as some of the top teams in general. Without Nunez, they have to play as good as Manchester City, as Arsenal, as a team. And then on top of that, do you really think Nunez is better than? Do you think Nunez is better than like Haaland, who's going to win you the Premier League? Do you think he's better than? I'm saying impact, not like the same type of player, but is he as much of an impact as Haaland? Is he as much of an impact as?
leave Haaland aside. All right, that guy's not human. He has the same
okay.
impact as Gabriel Jesus or the same impact as Julian Alvarez. Or the
Right,
same
but
impact as
Arsenal
Alexander
is
Isak.
in a much better spot team-wise than Liverpool is.
If you look at, so the way I look at it is you have Darwin Nunes, who I think is one of the best players in the Premier League so far. Szoboszlai, him, subpar for Liverpool, head to head in terms of performing wise overall. 1, he's scoring goals. 2, he's assisting. The most important part is now he's a hold-up player that can start an attack, hold up the ball, and pass the ball to Salah and whatever, and then they score goals. That's the difference between Darwin so far this year and last year. Last year, you give Darwin the ball to his feet, he's not going to be able to do anything. Right now, he's improved so much under pressure with ball to feet. He doesn't just have to go running behind, that's his pace is what obviously creates all the having stuff, all the chaos. Now he can get the ball, turn, give the ball off, just like Firmino did, playing in the false 9. So now you have Darwin who can, 1, stretch the field, and 2, who can come deep, receive the ball, turn, under pressure, all the center backs on him, and can do that. That's the third point. The fourth one, which for me is the most important, is the defensive work that he does compared to any other striker in the Premier League is not even close.
I'm not saying he's not an impactful player, and I'm not telling you what he does well and what he doesn't do well and all of that. What I'm saying is this. You said a third-place finish for Liverpool is what you would like to see from this year. That's achievable. That's a good place for them to finish.
I'll
that
take
you would
that.
take.
Yeah.
All right? Let's be realistic. Liverpool right now is not currently in a position to challenge from the Premier League. We'll see how the season goes. But because of the rebuild last year and because they're still in that process, whereas Manchester City are flying, they're not right now. Realistically, that's not really a conversation to say who's going to win. Is it Liverpool? Is it Manchester City? Right? Let's be honest. Let's be honest. know you're a
I can't
Liverpool
say no.
fan.
I
know
can't
you're
say
a
no.
Liverpool
I can't say no.
What I'm saying is this, is that in order for Liverpool to finish third in the Premier League, you have to have a player who's going to stand out and get them there. The team has to do well, of course, but you do have to have somebody who is doing so well versus some of the other strikers in the Premier League that's going to help them get there. Because I don't think Liverpool finishes in third place if all of your strikers are less than 18, 19 goals.
But you have
There's got to be one or two strikers that does it. So are you saying, so first of all, you have Salah, who's
Yeah.
probably the next one that you would say is going to be the highest one in the goals. Who scores more goals this season? Does Salah score more goals or does Nunez score more goals?
But why does it have to be one? Like what I'm saying is, Liverpool attacking wise, we have the depth. So you have Gakpo, you have all these players. They can come in if there's an injury.
Okay, so what I'm saying is you're telling me that Nunez can score less than 21 goals, Salah can score less than 21 goals,
Yes.
and all of your other strikers can score less than 21 goals,
Yes.
and you will still be able to finish in third
Yeah.
place.
I agree with that.
You
We'll
can
find out at the end of the season.
you can have Jota score 14. You can have Darwin score 15.
I
You
just
can
don't
say
think
Salah.
I don't think that altogether each of them is going to be like Gakpo's going to be at 14, Jota's going to be at 15, 13, Salah's going to be at 18, Nunez is going to be at 16. I don't think so. I think one of them is going to have to score a lot more goals than the rest of them.
Who was
Or
that
one or
guy at
two.
Arsenal last year?
Arsenal, but what I'm saying is that Arsenal is playing. Arsenal's brand is team football. Less of we don't have one guy who's like, you got to admit, think about it. Last year we almost won the Premier League. Was there anybody who was head and shoulders above the rest? No. Arsenal were just playing amazing football. Liverpool are not playing amazing football. They're getting better. They're getting better. They're getting better. But what I'm saying is, you need someone to stand out in that team in order for you guys to finish third, in my opinion.
But I mean, you like, for example, Arsenal's blueprint is literally what Liverpool was.
Don't
few
say
years
we
pre-
are copying.
I'm not saying you're
Don't
copying.
say-
The system and the way you guys played with the up and down and the fluid football and all that. It's not like it's more like Liverpool's club than it was Pep's Man City.
I think you just have to adapt to what you have as a coach. There are periods or stages in which you are going to have. I mean, who remembers Lewandowski's backup striker at Bayern? Nobody, because it was just Lewandowski and that's it, right? But now Liverpool has all that depth up front, and they have all young players: Luis Diaz, Gakpo, Darwin Nunez. I think they can get to a point where they can be just like that Arsenal team that doesn't have a monster, a Haaland, an Mbappe type of guy that will secure 30, 35 goals. I think they can achieve that top three without that. And if they do need it, I do see potential in Darwin to get to that point at one point of his career. He's still very young. I rate him to have a higher chance than bringing a new player off the market.
Okay, so here's my final thoughts on that. My final thoughts are, first of all, if Liverpool does finish in third, which I don't think they will, I think Liverpool will finish between fourth and fifth. I think they'll finish there. If Liverpool do finish in third, I think someone is going to have to score more than 21 goals in order for them to get there. And at the end of the season, let's say they do finish third. When we go to the player stats, somebody will be 21 or plus. And I'm not sure, and I don't think it. Sorry, let me rephrase that. I know it's not going to be Darwin Nunez. It could be Gakpo. It could be
More than
Jota.
likely Salah.
I would say yes. I would say
If it's
most
not
likely
Salah, it's
it
not
would
Gakpo.
it would
Gakpo's
likely
now
be
scored
Salah.
21 goals. If you don't.
So that's what I'm saying. So I'm saying at the end of the season, if they finish fourth or fifth, I don't think. I think Salah could still have 21 plus goals, and they will finish fourth or fifth. That's also kind of what I'm saying. I'm saying if they finish third, I still don't think.
So you're saying
I don't think Nunez will get more than
The
21
guy bet
goals
his
this year.
mortgage, though. So
Bet my mortgage.
what are you
George.
betting?
You bet my mortgage, George.
I always think, okay, I mean, I don't know.
Listen,
we can agree to
this
disagree.
is yeah, of course. But this is you said when I made my prediction about Haaland last season, you're
my
like,
God.
it's an easy prediction.
It
Anybody
is.
could have made that prediction.
It's an easy prediction to say Haaland's going to score. It's like me saying Harry Kane's going to score 30 in the Bundesliga.
All right. So is this a harder prediction than what I'm making right now?
It's
Like if when it happens at the end of the season, you're not gonna say, oh, that was an easy prediction.
okay. You can say it's an easy prediction because everybody's going to say, oh, Darwin's not a good player or whatever. That's the theme that everybody's going for.
But I feel like I'm being pretty specific with my prediction though.
Well,
He's not going to score more than 21, and I don't think Liverpool's going to finish third. I think Liverpool will finish fourth or fifth.
so who's in your top four then?
Manchester City, Arsenal, Third spot is up for grabs.
But it's not
Third spot is up for grabs.
But it's not Liverpool.
No, I'm not saying that they can't be in there. I'm just saying I don't think they will get the third spot. I think if you're looking at team, I think I wouldn't be surprised if it's Tottenham. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Brighton. And I think it's probably between those two right now. Who else right now is in the top 5 or 6?
Newcastle, maybe.
Newcastle.
Yeah, so I think between. So if we go to the table, I think between
You got to start giving Liverpool more respect, my man.
Tottenham, Brighton, Newcastle, and potentially even Manchester United. I'm just saying with all those teams in the mix. I would say one of those teams gets third over Liverpool. And I think Liverpool ends up fourth or fifth.
So if you had to, bet something huge right now for that third spot, you would put Brighton and all those teams before you name Liverpool.
Not necessarily before I name Liverpool, but I'm saying one of those teams will get it before Liverpool. I can't say like Manchester United or Brighton. I'm just saying with all those teams in the mix, I don't see Liverpool. If you grabbed all of those teams, I would say the percentages of Liverpool getting third are pretty low.
I would say
Pretty
it's among
low.
the highest percentages there from that group.
Of just those teams, of getting third place, George. Of getting third place. I'm not saying low as in like they're going to be relegation battle.
Well, no. I know, but you saying
I'm
the
still
four-
telling you, I think they finish fourth or fifth.
But you're saying the 4 teams are fighting for third, but Liverpool are going to finish above 3 of those teams that could potentially finish in third.
No.
Yeah.
Now you're.
Well, yeah, you said 4 are fighting
Well,
for
it's
third.
just a one spot difference. So it's there's very little there's obviously not.
I
it's
am
not like-
finding holes here on Javi's
Wait,
argument.
How are 4 teams fighting for third?
I'm saying,
but then Liverpool are going to
okay,
finish above 3
I'm
of those
saying
teams.
this could happen. I'm saying Manchester City, Arsenal, Tottenham, Liverpool, Brighton, Manchester United. I'm saying it could be Manchester City, or I'm saying it could be Arsenal, Manchester City, Brighton, Liverpool, Tottenham, Manchester United. Or it could be same top 2. You could have Manchester United, Tottenham, Liverpool, Brighton. I'm saying there's a few different ways. I just don't see Liverpool being the strongest out of all those teams to be third.
So Liverpool is always your favorite to be fourth or fifth,
Correct.
but it's not on the top options for them to be top 3.
Correct. Correct. Thank you, Pedro, for summarizing that.
Interesting.
I think it makes no sense.
My
But
wife is
we-
not going to be happy when we lose the house.
Before we keep hurting George's feelings, I wanted to play a little game here. Last episode we talked a lot about Pep and his teams throughout the years, and there were a lot of comments. We got a lot of feedback, so I wanted to play a little game here. I wanted to compare Fergie's Man United to Pep's Man City, and this
Do
game.
you actually have the names? Because I don't have the names in
Yeah,
front of me.
yeah,
Do you
I
actually have
do.
the names? All right.
This came also from a comment on April, I think, that Rio Ferdinand said that they would beat that team, and it will probably be 3-1. So I just wanted to compare the 2007-2008 Man U and the 2022-2023 Man City, which are both Champions League winners.
Okay. I want to say before we get started in the comparisons,
Yeah.
are we comparing them in terms of... Here's my problem with comparisons of different decades. Here's my problem. My problem is that people will say now that Haaland would have been miles above the old Ronaldo or players like that. You cannot compare eras unless you're comparing them in relation to the teams and to the things that are available to them now. So, for example, Haaland is better than everyone else in the world right now when you give them the right nutritional plans, the right training methods, and access to all of the top things that are available in the world. Back in the day, they did not have that was available to them, right? So, how far ahead was the Manchester United that we're talking about to the rest of their Premier League and the teams around them versus how much
So
is what I'm saying. So,
I wanted to compare the players at their prime, but also within the context of their era and what they had available. And you can also look also at their career too, and you know where they got success, where else did they play, etc., and kind of just compare that player at their prime versus a more recent player or a last year player at their prime Okay.
Are we going for player then?
Yep.
But like, okay, just before we even do this, just think about the Fergie's team. You're talking
This
about.
is a late Fergie's.
But, I
Man
mean,
U.
any of them besides like when he got Ronaldo, obviously that was more flashy. But just thinking about some of those players, you put them anywhere else, they probably wouldn't be the player that they were with Fergie. So like, I mean, we're
You're
gonna
saying
go,
because of the team that he built?
yeah, the team that he built and how the system was in place.
Right.
So like, I don't know. We can go through our names,
All
but
right, let's go through the names. Let's
Yeah,
go through the
and
names.
it's just a fun game,
Yeah.
and we all have opinions, and it's okay
Yeah.
to have different opinions, and
Although George has terrible opinions most of the time.
we just deal with Sonny's comment on the group chat later, and that's it. We can live with it, guys.
All right, hit us with the first comparison.
So the first comparison is the goalkeepers. Man U 2007-2008 had Edwin van der Sar, and last year's Man City has Ederson in goal. So if you were starting a team today, you were, in the recess at school, age 12, who would you pick?
Van der Sar.
Javi?
Van der Sar.
Yeah, I'll probably go with Edwin too. I mean, I remember just the tremendous goalkeeper he was, and how safe his defense must have felt having him there. He was also huge. Probably distribution was a little bit worse than Ederson, but the game has changed a lot since.
Way different.
Been
yeah.
Yeah.
As a shot stopper, he was unbelievable.
Nobody's distribution was where all of the goalkeepers' distribution levels are now back in that day. I think shot stopping, though, Van der Sar is probably better than Ederson, which is why I would go with Van der Sar.
Yeah, I mean, did anybody even play out of the back like 20
Goalkeepers
years
will
ago?
play long.
Just long balls, right? So
I mean, this was only
But
1 year before Guardiola's Barcelona, I think, or 2 years before that.
yeah, but that's very different because Guardiola's Barcelona was a big reason why things changed.
Yeah, but he's not a good coach. So let's move on to right back.
He
well, Pep also bought Klopp's bathwater or whatever.
Okay,
so.
so hold on. So the other thing I would like to say about the goalkeepers, though, is Ederson has not had to face nearly as many shots as Van der Sar had to back in the day.
I agree with that too.
Like if you made a highlight video of saves, Ederson's would be slightly shorter, a lot shorter than Van der Sar's, just because he hasn't had to do as much because Manchester City dominates games with so much possession that Manchester United never did. back in the
And
day.
the way that the game has evolved with being so possession based has also decreased the number of chances that you could see in a game. I remember, back in the day, games will be broken all the time, and it will be just so many shots on goal from one side to the other.
So who does that benefit more when you're looking at comparison?
Van der Sar?
Is it Van der Sar because he's getting more shots so he has to stop more?
Yep.
Or is it because Ederson, the less amount of shots that he gets on, still gets scored on and doesn't stop as many?
Yeah,
Because you were saying
it's just hard because when they're not getting as many actions as the other one, it's hard to say. Because if Van der Sar, for example, Manchester United had dominated as much as Manchester City does with possession, would we still be choosing Van der Sar?
And you could also make the argument that when Ederson played for Benfica, he definitely got more shots than while at Man City. He was not a world-class talent, even though, despite he was very young, right? But he was not Thibaut Courtois, 21-year-old.
That's a hard comparison. That's a hard comparison. I would still go Van der Sar if I had to choose.
Yeah.
All right, next.
Right back, Wes Brown at Man United and Kyle Walker at Man City.
But this is what I mean. Like,
Come on.
Like, Wes Brown, amazing player for Man United, but you put him from most teams anywhere else.
He really started?
Yes, he did.
Oh, he did start. No.
He started that UCL final.
We can skip that one because the correct answer is
It is
Kyle
Wes
Walker,
Brown,
and I will not.
100%.
And I
You
will
can't
not
be
take a different
serious.
one.
I think Wes Brown was probably one of the weakest players on that Fergie squad, and I also rated him higher as a center back than a right back, and he played a lot of minutes at right back.
But he just fit.
Then we had the man himself, Rio Ferdinand, who was the captain of that Man United squad, versus Manuel Akanji.
Oh, Rio.
Yeah, I would go Rio. There's not a better comparison than Akanji.
I think he's just going.
We're just comparing starters of that UCL final.
Okay, fair enough. Real. Here, Ferdinand. The other thing I don't want us to get... I think so far we've been pretty accurate, but typically you will always choose the era that you watched growing up versus the era
Nostalgia.
later.
Right.
Yes, exactly. So you look at... if you ask an old-timer, Maradona or Messi, a lot more would say Maradona than if you ask someone right now, because we never saw Maradona. We never really got to see, I never really got to see him in his prime because I was too young. So I wonder if a lot of these are slightly biased because these are the people that we grew probably watching up. Like you said, nostalgia.
Yeah, but you're asking a Liverpool fan who has both of these teams.
Maybe there's better comparisons coming up. I don't like this one, so I don't like the first three that we got, because the first three are...
But you're also comparing the style. So it's very tough.
Well,
Like-
I mean,
All right,
I don't know how
Ferdinand.
how good
Correct answer.
Javi's memory is, but Rio Ferdinand dominated, the center back position for almost a decade, and unbelievable player, truly
Very different than Akanji as well.
above the average at that era of soccer.
Wore a white suit to his press conference.
Please tell me
Dickinson.
Vidic is in this list.
Yes, of course, he started next to
Vidic, I don't care who you're comparing
Yeah,
him to.
that's not a
Ruben Diaz.
Vidic.
Vidic.
I will probably go with Ruben Diaz.
To be fair, I might go with Ruben Diaz, actually.
I wouldn't.
I think
Vidic, the only one, not the only reason, but Vidic, I can clearly see myself picking him because of the nostalgia versus
100%.
versus what really...
I was gonna make that point.
Ruben Diaz, nothing really amazing about him in terms of like what he can do with his feet, in terms of like in the air or aggressiveness, but very difficult. He's like Busquets. Like if you back in the day, he was invisible. Busquets was, because he was so good at what he did, and he did a job that was so simple for Barcelona, but people kind of didn't appreciate. Ruben Diaz, kind of the same, like very difficult to beat. Very few mistakes that he's ever going to make. But does he do anything crazy special? Vidic, you like him so much, or you remember him so much because he was aggressive, like
hard tackles,
hard tackle. Like people love that kind of defending back in the day. So I would say that's why I would choose him in terms of the nostalgia. But if I actually had, if my life depended on it, and I had to pick the best player,
you're starting your team in recess, or you're in a Nike commercial picking players.
See, but again,
Ruben Diaz.
Vidic, natural born leader as well. Like if you're starting a team from the back, that's a natural born leader. Heading the ball, he's going to win every single header.
Again, it's an attractive trait, but let's talk who is the better player.
I think it's Ruben.
But if you ask me who I'm starting a team with, I wouldn't, not necessarily you got to pick the better player. Like if he's a better captain, better leader, like a captain of a team, like I'm starting from the back.
I already have Rio for that. And this kind of connects to a point. A lot of people say Sergio Ramos has made the career of so many other center backs like Rafael Varane while at Real Madrid. I think there is a little bit of that with Rio Ferdinand and whoever played next to him. He made a lot of mediocre defenders look great back in the day. A lot of the guys that were in the depth or in the bench for Man United when they played, Mikhail Silvestre, for example, was on the bench in that final. Another guy that looked excellent when paired with Rio. So I think there's a lot of that connection between Nemanja and Rio that made Nemanja look so good for so many years.
So you still go Vidic?
I'm still going Vidic because I can say the same thing about Manchester City, the whole entire team. It's possession based. They keep the ball, so it's way different. They don't get exposed as much. They don't get attacked as much.
I think Ruben has elevated the level of Man City's defense. So,
but
I'm just trying to be unbiased in terms of the nostalgia aspect of it.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think there's like a wrong answer. But if I'm building a team, I look at a center back. This guy was, I don't know.
You know who will be all about nostalgia, and he will be all about Man United picks here? Karim. Karim is the most nostalgic soccer fan I know.
All right, next one.
Patrice Evra and Nathan Ake at left back.
Patrice. Come on.
Yes.
I will gladly go with that one for nostalgia. I will.
No, I think
where I wouldn't for Vidic, I would.
I think
gladly do it for
objectively, Patrice is better than Nathan.
Wait, who are we comparing him to again?
Ake.
But he's not even a natural.
Yeah, but not
He's not a
Ake.
natural left back. He's more of a center back.
Yeah, Evra was in my youth. Evra was one of the first outside backs that showed me how well they can do when they start going up and when they start pushing up, and athletic and fast. And he was always in my FIFA team because his pace was always like 93, 94. So I would go with I would go with him. I wouldn't go with Ake.
Yeah, I think it's
Patrice.
no doubt here.
Yeah.
Georgie, you agree?
No, yeah, I like Evra.
That's crazy. So far we've gone.
I've gone all.
You've gone all. I've gone one for the modern.
It's just. I don't know.
We have gone 2 for the modern. Kyle Walker and Ruben Diaz.
Oh,
yeah,
Kyle
fair
Walker.
enough.
Yeah.
Kyle
Defensive midfielder, Michael Carrick or Rodri.
Rodri.
I'm glad you guys are not going with nostalgia here.
No. Michael Carrick was
He was a really good player. But,
very good player.
But not.
Decent coach, too. But yeah, the last 2 years of Rodri have been outstanding. Really outstanding.
But that's another thing. Like, we can talk about nostalgia, but then you can talk about recent times. Like, Roger now is like.
But that
one of
one's
the
an
best-
easy one because if you got asked who would you pick at the playground when you're picking teams,
Yeah.
it's not that close of a. In my opinion, it's not close. You take.
Moving on
Roger.
to a harder one. Remember, we're comparing here at their prime. Paul Scholes or Kevin De Bruyne.
KDB.
KDB. He's more. He's more. He's again different player. Like when you talk about the two things or the one thing that they both do very very well, it's something on completely opposite sides of the spectrum. Scholes was very accurate, and that's one of the things that people talk about how accurate he was. People also love him for the fact that somehow the guy managed to not get red carded every single game because he would put in some crunching tackles. KDB is different when it comes to vision.
I think a lot of this KDB hype, though, is based on the modern game. And remember, we were trying to separate that and compare them to their peers at the time.
I would take KDB.
I think this is a much closer decision to me than the Vidic Ruben Diaz. But maybe perhaps still KDB. Pretty easy one next, in my opinion, is Owen Hargreaves and Gundogan. I think Hargreaves was very underrated at the time, but I don't think he gets to the point.
That's crazy. So this was the team, huh?
That's what I'm saying.
There's a couple of these names that I'm like, if I almost feel like there's a couple of those names where
They're
they're
only
playing
playing
because
because-
somebody else was injured
Yeah.
or something like that.
Like Park or someone.
Well, I mean, this was also late Fergie Man United. You know, it was not the
Like-
Beckhams and all this.
Was this the last time that Manchester United won the Champions League?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So my boy Chicharito's in here. Is he not in here?
He did not start.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Fair enough. But anyway, okay.
I mean, Owen Hargreaves is really good before his injuries, and then
I choose
and
not
this
to
is
answer
it.
this one.
What?
I don't really care. I'll play with one man down.
What?
Yep.
Okay, hold up. Wait.
Disrespect for
Play with a man
Gundogan.
Gundogan.
I like Gundogan.
won
I like
pre-
Gundogan. I like Gundogan.
He was the reason why Man City.
Yeah,
has
I mean,
been
if I
so-
had to pick, yeah, I'd take him.
the past 2 years, City won because Gundogan. He doesn't score those goals from midfield. they don't win the
Surprisingly,
Premier
though,
League.
he's not a consistent starter. Even Gundogan has not been a consistent. There's been one or two of the big games in the Champions League semifinals and finals. He came off the bench.
Whose fault is that? Pep likes to tinker at big games.
He likes
I mean, he did a job.
experimenting and overthinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I would take Gundogan, but I'm not like super thrilled about like, oh
What?
man, I would absolutely take him
Oh,
over
Gundogan.
Hargreaves. Yeah, Hargreaves is
He was really good before his injury.
Underrated.
I
Yeah.
think maybe it's because the decision is quite clear that I would choose Gundogan.
Yeah.
All right. Easiest decision of the night: Ronaldo or Grealish? Ronaldo, obviously.
Come on, Jackie boy.
Hey, Grealish has come a long way, man.
Not
Has
this
he?
year. This year hasn't done
Are
anything.
you serious?
This year, no.
I mean, we're 6 games in, but
Yeah, I
the
mean,
guy last year was
last year he was really
a
good.
massive part of
Yes,
why they won.
I agree.
And people were giving him so much crap for being worth 100 mil or whatever, and then coming in and not being able to actually get a starting position. And then there was times where he was the one that prevented the counterattack. He was the one preventing the guy from scoring a goal.
Yeah.
That's impressive. However, yes, not a comparison.
Yeah,
My boy
not
Ronaldo.
in this one.
Closer one: Wayne Rooney or Haaland at their prime.
It's so hard because they're
Haaland.
so completely different.
Haaland is the right answer, George. Don't give
I
me
mean,
that.
I'm
I
not
know.
saying- I'm
Every time the word Haaland comes into the play, Georgie thinks Nunez.
No.
Listen,
Haaland is unbelievable. Don't get me wrong.
Rooney's great. He's a legend. He's
I'm
an icon.
gonna
I'm
really
about
have
to
a
kick you
hot
off this
take.
podcast, Pedro.
He's way different. That's
I
the
think
thing.
Wayne Rooney at the time, even at the time, was a little bit overrated. And this is a hot
Oh,
take.
okay. So you're gonna go with Holland.
Obviously.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna go.
But,
with
I thought he's
but
gonna
you
pick
know,
Rooney too.
I think, Wayne Rooney's English. There's a lot of hype around English players.
Yeah.
He was a golden boy. He got, he started at Everton age 16 or 17. But I think at the time he was not even a top 3 in the world. You had guys like Del Piero, Raul, Ronaldo, strikers that were, in my opinion, better than
maybe.
him.
I don't think we can say that his influence wasn't as big as it was because he did have some very big moments for Manchester United. Huge. I just think Haaland is unplayable, and Haaland is unplayable way more consistently than Rooney was. There were some games where Rooney did really, really well, but I don't think he comes close to Haaland. I think Haaland's on a different level.
I think Rooney is an absolutely great striker. I don't think he was at the GOAT type of status.
I don't think he's not a goal scorer. That's why he's like a hybrid of.
Yeah, center forward type of thing,
Yeah.
not really a striker. Carlos Tevez and Bernardo to close it.
Tevez.
This
Tevez.
is tough one. I mean, they're not
Tevez
even
came in clutch in a lot of moments.
Did he live up to the hype though when he was at
I think-
Boca?
I think Tevez' greatest time in his career was at Manchester United.
Wasn't it only like a couple of seasons too?
Yeah,
Like very short.
I think that was his best moments. I think
West Ham
where else was he?
and West Ham,
West Ham,
right?
Man City.
Man City, right? Went to Man City. I think Manchester United was his best time, and I think he was more impactful than Bernardo Silva.
I think Bernardo is very underrated. Very
I-
underrated.
I also think, right, how many of these players, if you took, because it only works really one way, the modern way. So how many of these players, if you took them and put them in this Manchester City team with the same amount of time through the academies or whatever, and inserted them into this Manchester City team, how many of them would be even better than the players that are there right now? Like if you think Rio Ferdinand, for example, being taught by Pep how to play possession style football, on top of all the other attributes that he's got, how much better would he have been now than he was back then? Right? Same thing with a couple of those other guys.
Paul Scholes could have been the.
Like this is the time. These guys are playing in this time where they would like smoke cigarettes during halftime.
I don't know.
And that was like totally
it's
normal.
not the 80s, but
I don't
I'm
know.
just saying. Okay,
No.
maybe not. Maybe
This
that
is
far
like,
ahead.
This is like 2008.
But
It's
like,
not that.
but like you go into a halftime speech by Pep versus a halftime speech by Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, different times.
Different times, right? Tactics right now, the modern game is all tactics. It's all tactics, and they're starting to focus a lot more on like athleticism, and they've seen what happens when you have someone who's like a freak of nature like Haaland, and you show them tactics and things, or you put them in a system where back then they didn't have any of that stuff. I do think though that there was a pivotal moment in football history when Pep took Barcelona.
yeah, of course. But
So I
the
think you
tactics
can
still mattered. People were not
Yeah.
just smoking cigarettes and drinking whiskey in the bench.
No, but I think they were pretty close. I think that was probably towards the end of that time. I think nowadays it's crazy to think about that. But I do believe if you had to separate it into eras, you would say everything after Barcelona can be paired into one category, and everything before Barcelona, not everything before, but that time from maybe like the 90s or like late 80s to 90s can be talked about before
I
Barcelona.
think the start of the 2000s is one until Barcelona, and then
I'll say 2009 forward. 2009 forward is a similar era. We can much more closely compare teams and players than we can before then.
you got to start at like 2003, 2004 when Mourinho with Porto went to
2004.
Chelsea.
No, that wasn't in 2004, was it?
I think so. Yeah,
It might have
Those
been
are-
Porto, right?
Yeah, and then went to Chelsea. That's when Chelsea started spending the money. That's like one little 4
Yeah, fair
5
enough.
year, and then you go to Barcelona where they change it up. But the crazy thing is, you look at that team. It's not that impressive for like like it's impressive, but it's not. Like you're looking, it's very hard for me to
Like the fact that you can win the Champions League with Hargreaves
yeah.
or in West Brown.
No,
Yeah.
you could say the same about Akanji or Ake or
Yeah, but it is. You're right because
Yeah.
it's a system.
I like this.
I like
I
the
like this.
system.
I think we should just bring
Yeah.
up another one for the next
Yeah,
time.
we should
Because I like
close-
these comparisons.
yeah.
I feel like I'm curious about some other teams in history versus some of the teams today. I wonder how much. I think we were pretty close. We were pretty like, roughly 50-50, right? It wasn't that far off. It wasn't that far one-sided.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that one was good. What else? Is that it?
that's it. Long enough.
All right. That's a good one. That's
What's your fact?
my fun fact.
Yeah, no, just any fact, right? You said last
That I'm
episode-
psychic, and I can tell you right now that Darwin Nunez is not going to score more than 21 goals in the Premier League. That's a fun fact. I'm just giving it to you early.
Okay. Pedro.
I mean, my fun facts are all those facts about Chelsea, which is
I'll bring a fun fact next time.
The Chelsea one is, or I read it on Twitter today. They haven't scored a goal this month. If they don't score against Brighton in an official game, and no, every team does like goal of the month for their social media.
They won't have a.
They won't. They're gonna post from their training session.
That's hilarious.
That's insane.
They won't have a single candidate.
Yep.
So if they score one goal, that
That's
has
good.
to be the goal of the
That
month.
has to be goal of the month.
Have they been posting goal of the month every time?
Yeah, every team does it for the most part.
That's funny.
Like in their like YouTube videos and social media. Like, oh, goal of the month, player of the month.
All right. That's interesting. Very
crazy.
interesting. All right. So in the future, I think we can bring on some other guests. I think maybe next week we'll have Connor on. I have space for up to 6 microphones. I'm totally okay doing a roundtable because I'd like to hear some of like Sonny would have been great for that discussion. And if we would have put a team like Roma's
Roma?
team now versus
No.
like
Sonny. Oh, Roma's team now. Okay, because Sonny is a
Right,
fake
like I'm
Roma
saying,
fan.
he's too young.
so Roma's team now versus I don't know another team that Mourinho had back in the day or another Italian.
Oh, that
team.
would be very fun.
You know, Sonny was a Juve fan 2 years ago. Now he's a Roma fan.
he's
So
that guy, huh?
He's like
No.
he's flip flopping.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to hear some of these people's opinions. So maybe we'll get some of them on the podcast. But I think that's it for this one. No, did you have any other facts or anything? No, that was it.
No.
We'll do our homework next time. Well, Pedro did his homework clearly. He's got
Yeah.
Pedro's got a piece of paper over here with all of his facts, which fair enough for the Fergie's Man United versus Pep's Man City. But maybe we should do that a little bit more, Georgie. You and I got to do some homework.
So who wins? They play right now.
I think Manchester United wins because they sub in Chicharito to get them the game winner. And he scores with the back of his head somehow.
Man United won 6-5, according to all of us.
No, but like who wins the game?
Who wins the game? They
Oh,
play?
wins the game? Right. I mean, yeah, Man City.
Well, yeah, I get, yeah. That's again, who wins if it's
Who
hard-
wins
you
if
can't-
Rio's
if they
55
meet-
years old? right now.
If they meet in 2015 in between.
I think if you rate the quality of that team over everybody else at that time versus the quality of the new team versus everyone else.
I think
over
it's
that
Man
time,
City
is it
still,
Man
because
City?
because Man United won that. Winning that UCL for Man United was a little bit of a stretch already, because that was the dying years of Man
But
United.
Rio said different, right? Rio said they would win 3-1.
I mean, what was the guy gonna say? Like he will lose?
I listened to
When do
Rio.
you think Roy Keane is ever going to say anything positive about, or not anything positive, but when do you think he's ever going to say anything that the modern players are better than the old school players?
How does Roy Keane fit into Man City's team? With all the tackles.
Roy Keane,
What a legend.
legend. Anyway, that's it for this one. We'll try and be consistent, and I'll try to be on time next time, so we can record more podcasts. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.